One thing we do know is that from a very early age, Charles Ponzi was a very established thief.
Throughout history, there have been some pretty ingenious liars, but you've never seen scams like these. From a man who revolutionized financial crime to, well, a man who managed to sell a world-famous monument twice. You're about to see some insane scams. This is History Unfolded. The Ponzi Scheme. Way back in 1919, an Italian immigrant named Charles Ponzi arrived back in the US from a trip to Europe, planning to exchange his international reply coupons for US postal stamps. But he discovered that the postal stamps he got were worth more than what he paid for the coupons. All he had to do was go to countries with weak currencies, buy out the coupons, exchange them for stamps, and sell them to make a profit. An idiot could do it. So Ponzi set out to build an empire. Within months, he established his own company, the Securities Exchange Co., promising all interested investors an unbelievable 50% return on their investments within 90 days. That was 45% more than what the banks of the day had to offer. Of course, people flocked to Ponzi, hurling their money at him, and all of them made a 50% return. But none of it was from their investments. Oh, but while I have you, the best investment you could make is to hit that subscribe button below and the bell icon while you're at it. 100% guaranteed return on fun, information, all of the above. Anyway, on with the video. You see, Ponzi didn't even really have an operation to speak of. He only bought $61 worth of coupons, and he never invested the money that came through. Instead, he just used the funds from the new investors to pay the returns of the old ones, creating the illusion that the business was healthy instead of one very sweaty, charismatic man playing the system and keeping all of the excess profit. He had invented the world's first Ponzi scheme. In just 7 months, Ponzi ended up collecting $15 million from his investors. That's $235 million in modern US dollars. But how the hell did he get away with it? He just invented an entire world, telling his investors that he had an elaborate network of agents buying IRCs for him all over Europe. Unfortunately for Ponzi, his pyramid was about to collapse. Ponzi had started offering people 100% returns on investment, but something wasn't adding up. He had bought a bank to try and avoid the tax limitations and financial checks and balances on him, something that had raised suspicions in a journalist at the Boston Post. When he ran the numbers, the journalist realized that the numbers Ponzi was reporting were physically impossible because there simply had not been enough coupons printed in history to match the profit. Within days of the story running, Ponzi's investors began demanding their money back, and like all Ponzi schemes, Ponzi had run out of new investors to hustle. He was giving away the money he used to buy his mansion, his clothes, his cars. Eventually, his scheme was fully exposed, leading to his arrest and the collapse of his business. Thousands of investors were left with significant losses, and as for Ponzi, he pleaded guilty and served time in both federal and state prisons before being deported to Italy. His scheme lives on today as one of the key templates for financial fraud. Victor Lustig. Victor Lustig is one of history's greatest con artists, a man who could sell anything, even if he never actually owned it. In 1925, Victor was home in Austria when he read a newspaper article discussing the troubles the Eiffel Tower was going through. The tower was rapidly deteriorating, and the maintenance costs were so high that the locals wanted the whole tower scrapped. Well, that was all Victor needed to know. He hired a forger friend to make him a fake government ID and some fake government documents identifying him as the Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs, which, while sounding extremely fake, was actually very real. By the time Victor arrived in Paris, he already knew what to do. He arranged a meeting with a group of the city's best scrap metal dealers, quietly informing them that the French government was planning to sell the tower for scrap and that they alone had been chosen to make bids. Of course, Victor was only using them. He had no ties to the Eiffel Tower, but he quickly identified his mark, an insecure businessman named André Poisson. New to the city, desperate to make a name for himself, Victor used that to his advantage, offering him this very prestigious fake opportunity for a bribe. Well, my friends, Victor got his money and he immediately fled back home to Vienna. When Andre came to collect, he was confused to realize that actually the French government had no intention of selling. Nor did they even know the man that Andre had paid. He was so humiliated that he didn't go to the police, which just made Victor more confident. He was so happy that Andre kept quiet that he came right back to Paris, setting up the same scheme, roping in more scrap metal dealers and looking for that insecure Mark. But it didn't happen. Victor had been so eager, so overly confident that he pushed too hard. One of the buyers became suspicious, alerted the police, and forced Victor to leave Europe entirely. Victor was eventually found and captured in New York City, but he never showed any remorse for his crimes. If anything, he was extremely proud of selling a monument that he had never even seen before. Poyais. It was the 1820s, and a Scottish soldier named Gregor MacGregor had just come home to London from the war. He told his fellow countrymen that he had just returned from the most incredible place, a little-known country on the coast of Central America, a farming haven, an undeveloped land with locals so kind they made him a prince. He was talking about Poyais. Never heard of it, right? Few people have, because it never existed. At that time, Britain was experiencing an investment bubble in Central and South America. The wealthy were funneling funds there and seeing massive returns, and Gregor saw an opportunity to get in on it. And boy, he did not do it half-heartedly. In his private time, Gregor had invented an entire nation. He devised a parliament, a banking system, commerce systems, a national flag, a coat of arms, a currency. He even wrote an entire detailed guidebook under a pseudonym and wrote a national anthem, none of which most people would ever see. But all of it helped him sell Poyais as a paradise with ample opportunities for settlers and investors. He told farmers that they could harvest maize 3 times a year and immediately started selling land certificates and government bonds, none of which actually existed. But that didn't matter. People were throwing money at him, buying land in this entirely fictional country. The only problem? People started packing up their lives to move to their new home. In 1823, 250 people arrived in Central America following a map that Gregor had given them, only to discover that this was nothing more than an inhospitable jungle, far from the paradise he had promised. Many of the settlers ended up passing away, but those that survived, well, they returned to London, discovering that Gregor's scam had been exposed to the world. Gregor was on trial for his scam, with the survivors called in as witnesses. But when it came to their turn to talk about their experiences, they defended him. Yeah, the survivors still believed that Poyais existed and that Gregor had been misled in his map. He was ultimately acquitted of any crime, but he immediately left London, heading to Spain to start a new life. For the next 15 years, he continued to promote Poyais, selling more land of this country, which of course never actually existed. But hey, he was rich as hell. And there you have it, 3 of the biggest scams in history. And if you're fascinated enough by these tales of deceptions, stick around. You can always find these incredible stories here at History Unfolded. If it's your first time here and you made it this far, why not check out our video on how a horse's ass made the space shuttle? Until next time, like and subscribe, and always stay curious.